Daniel slid the envelope across the dinner table so slowly that every person in the room stopped talking before it even reached me. "Let's end this now," he said. The air in his parents' dining room turned heavy. Forks lowered. Glasses stopped clinking. My 3-month-old son slept against my shoulder while 12 pairs of eyes locked onto the white envelope sitting in front of me. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. My hands went cold anyway. "A DNA test?" I whispered. Daniel leaned back in his chair like he was the calmest person in the room. "You said you had nothing to hide." His mother let out a sharp laugh. "Crystal, if that baby is really my grandson, then open it." I felt every old fear from childhood crawl back into my chest. The judgment, the humiliation, the certainty that everyone had already decided who the villain was before I even spoke. "I carried this baby for 9 months," I said quietly. "And I paid for everything," Daniel snapped. "This house, your medical bills, your car. So yeah, I deserve the truth." The room fell silent again. My fingers trembled as I picked up the envelope. Daniel watched me too carefully. Not angry, nervous. That was the first moment something felt wrong. I opened the results. My eyes scanned the page once, then twice. Probability of paternity 99.99%. Daniel was the father. An awkward shift moved through the table. His sister looked down. His mother blinked hard. Someone coughed. But Daniel smiled. "Good," he said. "Then you can explain the messages." I slowly lifted my head, and suddenly I understood. He thought I still didn't know. The pressure crushing my chest for weeks disappeared so fast it almost made me dizzy. Because Daniel had walked into this dinner believing he controlled the story. He had no idea the story was about to destroy him instead. "You really thought," I said carefully, folding the DNA results in half, "that I wouldn't find out first?" Daniel's expression changed instantly. Not confusion. Fear. 3 weeks earlier, Daniel had started treating me like a stranger inside my own home. At first, it was small things. He stopped kissing me goodbye before work. He stopped answering texts for hours. He barely looked at our son after he was born. Then the questions started. "Who were you texting? Why were you out so long? Doesn't it seem weird he doesn't look like me?" Every conversation somehow became an accusation. I told myself he was stressed. His business had been struggling for months, and after my difficult pregnancy, I knew things between us had changed. I'd left my job after the birth because daycare cost more than I made. Daniel handled all the money now. The mortgage, the accounts, everything, and his family adored him, which meant every cold glance from him came with silent support from everyone around him. At dinner that night, his mother crossed her arms. "What messages is he talking about?" Daniel's eyes stayed locked on me. But I noticed something else. His fingers were shaking under the table. That didn't happen when Daniel felt powerful. It happened when he thought he was losing control, and suddenly I remembered the night everything truly started to unravel. The whispered phone call, the locked screen, the woman named Vanessa, and the photo that changed everything. Daniel started sleeping in the guest room during my 7th month of pregnancy. At first, he blamed work. "Big client," he muttered one night while grabbing a blanket. "I need actual sleep." But even after the baby was born, he stayed there. Some nights I'd wake up at 2 in the morning with our son crying in my arms and hear Daniel downstairs laughing quietly on the phone. The second I walked into the hallway, the laughter stopped. One night, I stood outside the kitchen doorway listening. "She can't know until I'm sure," Daniel whispered. I froze. "Sure about what?" The next morning, I asked him directly. "Who were you talking to?" Daniel didn't even look up from his coffee. "A client." "At 2 in the morning?" He sighed dramatically, like I was exhausting him. Crystal, not everything is a conspiracy. Then came the comments about the baby. Too many comments. His eyes are darker than mine. My brother said babies usually resemble the father immediately. You were spending a lot of time with Mark from the gym before you got pregnant. That last one hit me like a slap. Are you accusing me of cheating? Daniel stared at me for a long moment. I'm saying I don't know what to believe. After that, something inside me started breaking. I stopped defending myself because every defense somehow became proof I was hiding something. Then one afternoon, while Daniel showered upstairs, I logged into our shared phone account. One number appeared over and over: late nights, early mornings, long calls, Vanessa. I copied the number into social media. And there she was. Blonde, beautiful, smiling beside a rooftop pool in photos Daniel had supposedly been working late during. Then I noticed something else. Around her neck was my grandmother's gold necklace. The necklace Daniel told me had been lost during our move. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling. Designer handbags, bracelets, hotel photos, things missing from our house. That same night, I checked our bank statements and found monthly payments to an apartment downtown under a company account Daniel thought I couldn't access anymore. I took screenshots of everything. But I still said nothing. Because I needed proof. Real proof. 2 nights later, Daniel walked into the nursery while I rocked the baby to sleep. "You've been acting weird," he said. I looked up carefully. Maybe because my husband barely touches me anymore, his jaw tightened instantly. Maybe because I don't know if that baby is mine, the cruelty of it stunned me silent. And Daniel used my silence against me. "See?" he said softly. "That reaction tells me everything." Then he walked out. I sat there shaking with anger while our son slept against my chest. An hour later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. One image. That was it. I opened it and stopped breathing. Daniel stood in a parking garage with his arm wrapped around a pregnant woman. His hand rested possessively across her stomach. Below the image was a single message: "You deserve to know who your husband really is." I stared at that photo the entire drive to Daniel's charity event the next evening. Every red light gave me another excuse to turn around and go home. But I didn't, because after weeks of being treated like the guilty one, I needed to see how far Daniel was willing to take this lie. The ballroom buzzed with investors, local politicians, and members of Daniel's family when I arrived. Crystal chandeliers reflected off champagne glasses while waiters moved through the crowd carrying silver trays. And right in the center of it all stood Daniel. Perfect suit. Perfect smile. Perfect husband. The second he saw me, he wrapped an arm around my waist for the audience. "There she is," he said warmly to a group of investors. "My wife." I almost laughed at how convincing he sounded. Then I saw her. Vanessa. She stood near the stage in a dark green dress, one hand resting lightly over her stomach while she laughed at something Daniel's sister said. And around her neck, my grandmother's necklace. A wave of heat rushed through me so fast, I thought I might actually faint. Daniel had brought us into the same room, neither of us knowing the full truth. He leaned closer without moving his smile. "Don't embarrass me tonight." I looked at him. "You already embarrassed yourself." His grip tightened painfully against my waist. "If you start drama here," he whispered, "I'll tell everyone exactly why I requested the Dina test." The threat landed exactly how he intended. Public humiliation. Again. A few minutes later, Daniel stepped on stage to thank donors. His voice carried confidently across the ballroom. "Trust matters," he said. "In business, in marriage, in loyalty." Several people clapped. I felt sick listening to him weaponize words he didn't even live by. While the crowd gathered around the stage afterward, I finally approached Vanessa near the bar. She smiled politely at first. You must be Crystal. The way she said it told me everything. Daniel had already prepared her. You know who I am? I asked carefully. Her expression shifted. Daniel said you two were separating. My chest tightened. He said, what? Vanessa lowered her voice immediately. He told me you'd been seeing someone else for months. He said the DNA test would finalize everything before the divorce. For a second, the entire room seemed to tilt sideways. This wasn't impulsive suspicion. Daniel had been building this story for months, planning it, creating witnesses. Before I could respond, Daniel suddenly appeared beside us. There you are, he said sharply to Vanessa. Then he looked at me with a warning hidden behind his smile. Excuse us. That night after we got home, Daniel went upstairs to shower while I opened his laptop at the kitchen counter. My hands moved fast. Emails, bank transfers, legal documents. Then I found a draft agreement moving money out of our shared accounts. Attached beneath it was an email to his attorney, need advice protecting assets in case of potential paternity fraud. My pulse hammered. But the final document hit harder than everything else combined. A clinic appointment confirmation. Different patient name. Different test. Same date range. And suddenly I realized the DNA test Daniel feared most wasn't mine. The next morning, I followed Daniel across town to a private medical clinic. I stayed 3 cars behind him the entire drive, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. When he parked underground, I pulled into the far corner and watched him step out alone for exactly 4 minutes. Then Vanessa arrived. She looked different up close without the makeup and polished smile from the gala. Tired, pale, nervous. Daniel met her near the entrance, and even from across the garage, I could tell they were arguing. Vanessa folded her arms. You said the timeline didn't matter. It doesn't, Daniel snapped quietly. Then why do you need another test? My stomach dropped. Another test. Vanessa looked close to tears. You told me Crystal cheated. You said you already knew your marriage was over. Daniel lowered his voice, but one sentence still carried through the empty garage. I just need certainty before this blows up. The world suddenly made horrible sense. Daniel wasn't accusing me because he believed I cheated. He was trying to get ahead of his own disaster. I waited until they disappeared inside before calling someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Rachel, an old college friend who now worked administration at the clinic. At first, she hesitated. Crystal, I could lose my job. I just need to know if my husband already received our results before the dinner. Silence. Then a quiet exhale. Yes, she admitted. He got them days ago. My chest tightened. He knew the baby was his? Yes. I closed my eyes. Every accusation, every cold look, every public threat, manufactured. Rachel continued carefully. He also kept pushing staff to rush one prenatal paternity test while delaying another release request. Honestly, people here noticed how desperate he seemed. After the call ended, I sat in my car staring at the clinic doors. Daniel already knew the truth about our son. The dinner wasn't about finding answers. It was about ruining me before anyone questioned him. That night, I printed everything. Bank transfers, apartment payments, screenshots, phone logs, the anonymous messages. I spread the papers across the dining room table while the baby monitor crackled softly beside me. Then Daniel walked in. His eyes immediately locked onto the open folders. What did you take from my laptop? I looked up calmly. Enough. His face darkened instantly. Give me the files, no. It was the first time in years I'd refused him without backing down. Daniel stepped closer. You don't understand what this could cost me. And there it was. Not guilt, not fear of losing me, fear of losing money. Status, control. A notification buzzed on his phone. He glanced at it and stiffened. His mother's family dinner reminder. Tomorrow night, the same dinner where he planned to humiliate me. Daniel looked back at me carefully. We'll discuss this privately. I stacked the papers into a folder. No, I said. We'll discuss it publicly. For the first time since I'd met him, Daniel actually looked afraid of me. I picked up our son from his bassinet and walked past him toward the stairs. Then I stopped beside the doorway without turning around. Bring every document you want, I said quietly. I'm done hiding for you. You really thought I wouldn't find out first? The question hung over the dinner table like a crack spreading through glass. Daniel's confident expression faltered for half a second before he forced a laugh. Crystal, stop making this dramatic. I unfolded the dinner results and placed them flat on the table so everyone could see. Daniel is the father, I said calmly. We all know that now. His mother crossed her arms immediately, then explained the messages he found. Daniel grabbed onto the opening instantly. Yeah, tell them who you were talking to. But before he could build momentum again, I stood up. Actually, I said, I invited someone. Daniel's face drained of color. A second later, the dining room door opened. Vanessa stepped inside, pregnant, nervous, silent. The entire room erupted at once. What is this? Who is she? Daniel shot to his feet so fast his chair slammed backward. Crystal, he hissed, don't do this. Vanessa looked at him in disbelief. You said she already knew about me. No, I said quietly. He said a lot of things. Daniel's mother looked between us rapidly. Daniel? But he couldn't answer. Because for the first time all night, he wasn't controlling the room anymore. I opened the folder I'd brought and slid several papers across the table. The apartment lease Daniel paid for. Another stack. Transfers from our joint accounts. Another. Messages between Daniel and his lawyer discussing how to protect assets before accusing me of paternity fraud. His father slowly removed his glasses. Daniel tried stepping toward me. This isn't what it looks like. Really? I asked. Then explain why your mistress is pregnant too. The room went dead silent. Vanessa turned toward him sharply. You told me the marriage was already over. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. Vanessa, not now. And tell them about the second DNA test, I interrupted. That hit harder than everything else. His mother blinked. Second test? I looked directly at her. Daniel accused me of cheating while secretly panicking that another man fathered Vanessa's baby. Daniel slammed his hand against the table, stop talking. But Vanessa was already staring at him with horror. You told me there was no one else, she whispered. Daniel looked trapped now, eyes darting around the room searching for support that no longer existed. Then Vanessa quietly pulled an envelope from her purse. I got my results this morning. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. She looked directly at Daniel when she said it. The baby isn't yours. The sound Daniel made barely sounded human. He stumbled backward into his chair, both hands gripping the edge of the table while every person in the room stared at him in stunned silence. Everything he'd built collapsed in seconds. The affair, the accusations, the public humiliation he planned for me. All of it suddenly exposed for what it really was, a distraction. Daniel looked at me desperately. Crystal, please, don't do this here. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I finally said the thing I'd been holding in for weeks. You weren't trying to protect yourself from betrayal, I said. You were trying to commit it first. Daniel broke. He actually dropped to his knees beside the table. Please, he said, voice shaking. Don't leave with the baby. Don't release those records. We can fix this. His mother covered her mouth in shock, but his father looked furious. How long? He asked quietly. Have you been stealing from family accounts? Daniel didn't answer, which was answer enough. Within minutes, the dinner dissolved into chaos. His father walked into the study calling investors. His sister started crying. Vanessa walked out without looking back once. And Daniel stayed on the floor, begging. I picked up my son and walked toward the door while voices exploded behind me. Daniel followed halfway down the hallway before his father stopped him cold. That was the last night I ever slept in that house. 3 days later, I filed for divorce. The evidence Daniel tried so hard to hide ended up protecting me in court. The financial records helped secure custody arrangements and exposed unauthorized transfers connected to the family business. His father froze Daniel's financial access almost immediately. Within weeks, people in their social circle learned what really happened. Not that Daniel had been cheated on, that he had fabricated the accusation while carrying on an affair himself. Vanessa disappeared from his life completely after learning how many lies he'd told both of us. I moved in temporarily with my sister and slowly rebuilt everything from the ground up. It wasn't glamorous. Some nights I cried from exhaustion while feeding my son alone at 3 a.m, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid inside my own home. Months later, I returned to work. One afternoon, I stood in my small apartment living room watching my son wobble across the carpet toward me on unsteady legs. His first steps. I caught him just before he fell, and he laughed so hard he hiccuped. And in that moment, I realized something. Daniel had spent years making me afraid of embarrassment, judgment, and losing stability. But the moment he tried to publicly destroy me, he lost everything instead. The DNA test proved he was the father. What exposed him was everything he did after.